Good evening and welcome to Sinister Wisdom celebration of Anita Cornwell's Black Lesbian in White America and Other Writings by Briona Simone Jones. Thank you all for joining tonight's discussion. My name is Mel Oliver and I'm pleased to welcome you this evening on behalf of Sinister Wisdom. This event will be an hour long, closing around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All of our events this season will have different hosts, giving opportunities to a range of lesbians involved in Sinister Wisdom to bring these events to you. I interned with Sinister Wisdom over the summer and will be working this year as the assistant event producer alongside Max Baker and Julie Enzer. I'm thrilled to welcome you to this event, kicking off our 2025-2026 season. We have so many good discussions in store. I'm looking forward to seeing you regularly over the next 9 months. As we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge where I stand. I currently reside on Lenapehoking, the ancestral and unceded homeland of the Lenape, Munsee, and Delaware peoples. I live here as a Black Indian lesbian with deep respect for the generations of care, resistance, and survival that continue to shape this land. I invite each of you to share, if you wish, the land you are joining us from in the chat. Naming and acknowledging place connects us to one another, reminds us that we gather across many homelands, and deepens our collective responsibility to the lands and peoples who hold them. We honor not only the original peoples of these places, but also all who endure struggle physically, mentally, spiritually, and materially across the world. From those resisting imperial violence, displacement, and erasure to those carrying burdens of oppression in their daily lives, we recognize your pain and your resilience. As lesbians and as a lesbian journal, we commit ourselves to remembering, loving, and standing with these struggles. We hold space for joy, for memory, for survival, and liberation bound together by Mother Earth. Secondly, a brief word about Sinister Wisdom. For those of you new to us, Sinister Wisdom is a multicultural lesbian literary and art journal that has been publishing since 1976. We are a collective effort, a labor of love and resistance. If you're not already a subscriber, we would love for you to join the Sinister Wisdom community. Subscriptions sustain us and monthly sustainers make our work possible. I encourage you to sign up for our subscriptions today by going to sinisterwisdom.org/subscribe. A group of monthly sustainers are vital to Sinister Wisdom. If you can give monthly to Sinister Wisdom, please sign up as a sustainer at sinisterwisdom.org/sustainers. Sinister Wisdom sends out emails every month when your gift comes in with behind the scenes details and new information about what we have coming for the journal. Sinister Wisdom is also pleased this season to be joined by our friends at Charis Books and More in Decatur, Georgia, for almost all of the events this season. Charis Books and More is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore, celebrating radical and independent voices since 1974. Together with Charis Circle, Charis Books exists to foster sustainable feminist communities, to work for social justice, and to encourage the expression of diverse and marginalized voices. They are located in Decatur, Georgia, metro Atlanta area, adjacent to the campus of Agnes Scott College. Charis just updated its website and has new functionality with tons of history, including some published in Sinister Wisdom. So if you have a moment, be sure to check out the Charis History and Media page. And when you think about purchasing books, thinking about purchasing them through Charis, either online or in person. And we'll drop all the links that I mentioned in the chat. So firstly, before we begin, I would love to remind everyone of some housekeeping notes. This space is meant to be reflective, safe, and comfortable, but I would also like to acknowledge the anxiety and discomfort some may experience in an online virtual space. So feel free to turn off your video if that's what feels good, but we also encourage your engagement. We are recording the event this evening and we'll make it available starting tomorrow or Thursday at sinisterwisdom.org/Black Lesbian. Please keep your mic muted throughout the program unless invited to speak. If we detect noise from you, we will mute you. As the program proceeds, you're invited to engage in the chat if you want to show appreciation for the readers, wave your hands at the end of each reading, and use the reaction emojis on Zoom. Feel free to light up the chat on Zoom. Sometimes that's the best place where things are happening in the event, and of course, all the links will be there. If you need technical support this evening, you can chat with Max or Julie. So yeah, stay tuned for the end of our customary dancing. This year we'll be grooving to a new song at the end of each event to keep you on your toes and celebrate women's music. And with that, I am now thrilled to hand over things to our moderator, Briona Simone Jones, who will guide us through the rest of this evening's conversation. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I feel really happy to have the opportunity to really revere the work that Anita did. I came to Anita's work as a graduate student when I was writing my dissertation and also the same time trying to create my anthology, Mouths of Rain. And one of the things that I became crucially aware of was how precarious life was for Black women writers, or really still is, especially ones who were writing during the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And not only was life precarious, I think that someone like Anita was really writing against impossible odds as a person who remained working class, sometimes oscillated between working class and working class poor. As someone who published this book, it's the republication, but at the age of 60, I've been really inspired by not even her resilience, but her investment in her art and in her craft. So both my, or not both myself, but me, Alexis, Lena, and Christy all have our sort of personal connections to Anita's work. And I always think that it's really useful to think about how writing enters the lives of people who may not be in the academy or situated in an academic setting. And so I'm really thankful that we all get to be in conversation together. And so yeah, what I'll do is I'll begin by reading a little bit from the foreword, and then I will open things up to hopefully a robust discussion. Yeah. So there's a short foreword in Black Lesbian and White America. It's a part of the Sapphic Classic. And I decided to quote a short passage from Anita because I think, we always hear about, there are no hierarchies of oppression from the Combahee River Collective. But Anita actually was someone who stated this a few years earlier. And so she wrote, inevitably, one comes up with the indisputable truth that oppression is oppression, no matter what the ideology behind it. That felt really poignant because so much of my writing right now and the republication of this book has been happening alongside the genocide in Palestine, and also the famine in Sudan, and also the ongoing wars in the Congo. And so I think that grounding my particular work within the context of the the massive nature of oppression was really important to me. So I'll read just a short passage. Dear reader, we are in the center of the second Nakba. There is a famine in Darfur and ongoing violence in the Congo. I am writing to you at the edge of the end of the world. Anita Cornwell was a Black lesbian journalist who was intentional about naming. At a time when she was the only out Black lesbian writing for the Negro Digest and the latter in the 1950s, she named how pervasive racism and homophobia were in the Black community and movement for civil rights. Or she named how pervasive sexism and homophobia were in the Black community and movement for civil rights. At a time when she was the only Black lesbian in the women's movement in the early 1970s, she cited their anti-Blackness. And at a time when she longed for connection with Black women, she underscored how the chokehold of Christianity and the myopic belief in the Black family not only stifled their relation to each other, but also made the critique of Black patriarchy inconceivable. I came to Anita's work because I wanted to study the contours of survival and to be under the tutelage of a Black lesbian marking the shape of freedom before it was fashionable. Because Anita grew up Black, poor, and female in the Deep South, her class analysis and astute coherence of interlocking oppressions made her a revolutionary writer. Anita wrote with clarity about the relationality between domestic tyrannies and transnational forms of subjugation. Anita modeled the Black lesbian adage of knowing the danger and going there anyways, republishing Black Lesbian in white America during the height of global fascism, where words like Black and lesbian are prohibitive, is a seditious act, a charge of irresponsible citizenship. I take pleasure in rebellion. And so I'm sure we'll get more into the nuances of Anita's work and what the work means to each of us specifically. But I like to open the conversation up to my very generous panelists, and you all can read from any section of Black Lesbian and White America that may have resonated with you. Um, and then we can also talk about some of the questions that we were ruminating on as a group. One of which I asked, how have you managed to build and sustain a creative life in spite of daily and incessant tyrannies? Romantically, what has held you? Artistically, what has been generative for you? And today, what is your vision of freedom?
Hi there. I really enjoy being in conversation with friends, and I find that the interview with Audre Lorde
Mhm,
was so important, and I hope that we continue in our generation to interview friends
mhm,
and find out more about their work, their practices, and just their everyday lives.
mhm,
And I've been trying to do that more with my friends. So there's this section from this interview that I want to share that I resonate with. As writers, we share a double knowledge that is both tortured and triumphant, right? Knowledge that is both hard to bear and yet is our salvation. In a sense, our writing is only a vehicle or a tool. Is that not so? Art is purpose. One's art and purpose and living being the same. Do I ever have problems with people trying to relate to me because of my work and not because of myself? Well, there does come a point, when you can no longer separate the self from the poetry. I just can't say they're only interested in me because I'm a poet, not because of who I am. Because poet and self become synonymous eventually. We all come to that point. When I say I'm Black, woman, and poet, I really mean it. It's not something I can separate.
mhm,
And that's on page 53 if anyone wants to
mhm,
go there. But yeah, I resonate with that so much because I don't think I can separate um, my artistry from who I am, and I think that shows up in everything that I do. And I'm just so happy to see that and stumble upon it.
mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, it was one of my favorite interviews that Audrey actually has had. I know there's a book of interviews with her, but I learned so much about her writing practice by virtue of this interview with Anita. Most notably that a lot of her first drafts appear blue paper, which if you have been to her archive, there's so much blue paper. But it wasn't until I read the interview that I realized how purposed it was, I guess, as a part of her practice.
Yeah,
Thank
I really resonate with your choices, Christy. And so I want to say that. First, I want to say I'm just really thankful to be here with all of you tonight and to really think about uh, what Anita Cornwell was doing and what she's still doing. I
you.
want to also just kind of dovetail on your thoughts, Christy. Also, invite us to consider that art is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And the danger is often in the vulnerability that we express, that we expose as artists. And one of the things that I really enjoy about coming back to this work is to think about Anita's vulnerability and the dangerous place she was standing in,
Mm-hmm.
and the dangerous place we're all still standing in
Mm-hmm.
this culture and in this particular global moment. And I want to say that, like Christy, I found immediately some places that resonated in the text for me. And I think it also has to do with how keen and smartly, how keenly and how smartly you edited this work, Briona, because right at the beginning, we get a sense of not only the meta narratives within this work and within Anita Cornwell's life and the long journey of her work across multiple genres, but we understand immediately where she's coming from. And so I just want to share with all of us here some very beginning statements in the first piece, three for the price of one, notes from a gay Black feminist.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get a little bit more light here. For quite some time now, I have been wondering what kind of life I would have led if I had not become a lesbian. Of course, at this late date, I am firmly convinced that all lesbians are born, not made. But due to our rigid heterosexual conditioning, most women are seldom fortunate enough to discover the joys of being a woman identified woman.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, if the seemingly well nigh impossible should ever occur, and we are freed from the bondage of sexism and homophobia, the non-white lesbian would still be subjected to racism, that endemic virus that has plagued the nation since our inception. And a little further on in this same essay, Anita is talking about being at a conference and having to deal with the ways in which Black women are identified and controlled in this culture. She says, a couple of years ago, when I was a member of a colloquium held at a large, nearly all-white Eastern university, I found myself as one of almost a majority, having to point out in a firm but not hostile manner that Black men were just as sexist as other men. Then I eventually realized that most of the vocal members in the room were holding fast to the idea that Black women only had one of two choices. Either we had to join the women's liberation movement and be led by white women, or we had to become part of the civil rights movement and let Black men run our show.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, I put my question to this young Black dude who seemed even more insistent than the others. And this is her question. You see, quote, you seem to be saying that I have to be led either by white women or Black men. Why can't I lead myself? And I think in large measure, what resonates for me with this text is not only the historicity of it, the ways in which we are invited to think about how Black women who entered what was called the women's liberation movement did so in the hope of solidarity, but also encountered both some measure of solidarity, but also difference in that they could not simply enter the movement simply as lesbian. They brought themselves as Black, and that was a critical space in which they had to negotiate white women's desires for freedom, but also the vestiges and the ongoing presence of racism.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is still true today. I
Mm-hmm.
think today we still are looking at this dangerous space of Black queer realities, both within this culture and within the larger global reality of who we see ourselves as and who we are, and who's trying to control us, who's trying to control the narrative around who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I love this question that you've asked us to consider, Briona. Not only how does Anita Cornwell's life and work resonate for us, but what how do we imagine our romantic lives as being part of this quest for the self?
Mm-hmm.
And what is it that drives us today? I think in large measure, my life is propelled forward by a deep sense of rage,
Mm-hmm.
a deep sense of this thing you call the impossible odds. In Anita Cornwell's life, it was being Black, being poor, being Southern, being working class, being lesbian. I remember when I was very young, my mother said to us, and she had 6 girls at that point and 2 boys, "You have three strikes against you. You're Black, you're poor, you're female."
Mm-hmm.
And these were the impossible odds. I love that phrase that you use. These were the impossible odds we had to encounter. In my particular life, I came to add queer as another impossible odd. But I also came to understand those things as tools, as states of resistance, that they
Mm-hmm.
were not going to be the things that would determine my life. They would be the things that I would use to make my life,
Mm-hmm.
to become myself. And in doing so, the combination of women and art has always been part of the ways in which I survive. I cannot survive without other women and artistic practice.
Mm-hmm.
They just go hand in hand. So, I mean, I'll stop there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
sure we'll get into other things, but I'll stop there.
I love when you speak.
Mhm.
I think
You.
one of the things that came up for me as you were speaking, I'm pretty sure that there are mostly queer people on the call, so I'm sure that we're all into astrology, the majority of us. But both Anita and Alexis are Libras, and also Christy, you're Libra too, right? Wow, triple Leo,
All
Libra.
right. Another Leo, another Libra down
Libra,
here.
let me call it Libra,
Hmm.
right? And I thought about how both you and Anita write across multiple genres, and in a lot of ways, as we've described it, it's cost you something.
Hmm.
It has cost you a lot by not creating what I would say the West would center as a homogenous practice.
Hmm.
Um, and I think one of the reasons that I kept the text really in its truest form is because I appreciated that Anita wanted to write across multiple genres and what would be her debut body of work. But I also think about that's probably why it's out of print. That's probably one of the reasons why it remained out of print. But I also think about how that plurality of both of your works is, to me, what makes it truly timeless. And so, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that, and thank you. And I'm going to say something I hope resonates with everyone, and resonates with something that I believe I saw a TikTok with Lena Waithe in it recently. Well, and this goes to this idea of writing across multiple genres, of having a multiplicity rather than being the one thing. When often when we've been the one thing, that's the thing that the they can have greater control over us. So I came to understand writing across multiple genres in that I've written for the theater. I've written children's books. I've written poetry. I've written short and long fiction. I've written memoir. I've written biography. They're poetry. There are like a few things I haven't written yet, but I feel like I have time, knock on wood. But this idea of not being the thing that you expect it to be, that is the price, as James Baldwin would say, that's the price of the ticket. That is the price that you pay for determining that what you call your artistic practices, what you call your blackness, what you call your, gender expression, whatever it is, in my case, it's across the she and the he. What you call yourself is not the expected role, social role that you are supposed to play. So when you're not that, then not only do you have freedom, this goes back to your other question, how do we look at freedom today? Not only can you determine freedom, but you will pay a price for that in some way, whether it's somebody's going to roll up on you and critique you for your gender optics or who you are, or how you present yourself rather, whether someone's going to critique you that you should have only written this kind of thing, but you've written all those things, whether they're going to say that you spread your politics across, multiple arenas, you will pay a price for it. And you will pay a price for identifying as a queer person within your community and without. You will pay a price because we're still living in that world. We're still living at the edges of the world that Anita Cornwell was deeply situated within. I love your statement that you're writing to us from the edge of the end of the world. That was
Barely.
my way of trying to get Lena Waithe to say something about that video.
It's funny, I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know it. I'm not on social.
Oh, it's probably on, yeah, it might be on TikTok, but it's also on Instagram. It's when you were receiving an award and you were talking about using the word queer, and you're talking about not only having us all in community, but you're also talking about you're not, you don't present. This may have been a different video. You don't present in a particular way. And not doing so allows you to really be more expansive in terms of what you're bringing to the table.
Got you. Well, no, I think that actually opens me up to read something from the book that's actually in the introduction, because I think it's about inclusivity of our community, which I think queer is very much an umbrella for everyone that wants to be underneath it. But in which Anita speaks, she said, if I may be so bold as to express a heartfelt wish for the future, it would be that sisters of all races, creeds, colors, and sexual persuasions might realize the folly of fighting amongst ourselves and band together to confront our common enemy, who continues to wage an unrelenting war against all of us. To me, it just sort of speaks to unity, and breaking down the barriers that even we sometimes build up in terms of trying to identify ourselves, which I think identity is important, but to not get too lost in it, to remember that we all have to share the space, and we all have to live with each other, whether we like it or not. And so I thought that was, to me, very inspiring and really futuristic to be spoken at that time.
Mhm.
I
Um,
love that that particular opening is situated alongside a statement that Sojourner Truth made
mhm,
in 1867. I come from another field, the country of the slave. They
Mhm.
have got their liberty. So much good luck to have slavery partly destroyed, not entirely. I wanted root and branch destroyed. There is a great stir about colored men getting their rights, but
Mhm.
not a word about colored women. If colored men get their rights and not colored women theirs, you see the colored men will be masters over the women, and it will be just as bad as before. So 114 years are between those particular statements, and Anita doesn't say the word too often in this text, but we still have a patriarchy issue, and I think that across every um, section of the book, I think she's trying to name that common enemy, patriarchy. I
mhm,
even appreciated, I know that there might be some points of contention regarding butch femme, stud, masculine or whatever. But really, I think the analysis is astute because so many of these categories or places that we find home in are also reifying norms that we need to be moving away from. And so I'm really appreciative about, like I said, her incisive writing. Um,
mhm.
Christy, do you want to speak to the second part of the question? How have you managed to build and sustain a creative life in spite of the daily and incessant tyrannies?
Yes. I think I've managed to build and sustain a creative life through my peers. I think despite the odds being stacked against me, um, despite the marginalization, uh, there are people who love me.
Mm,
Um, there's love where shame would rather take over and rest its head.
mhm,
Um, I think my peers nourish my creative life and eliminate the noise of where I may get discouraged. So despite the marginalization, the complexities that I walk in, the harm that I've fallen to, the harm that I've also put onto others, right? We have to remember we too contribute uh,
mm,
into
mhm,
being tyrants in this world,
mm,
uh, especially when you are marginalized and tyranny is all you know. Um,
mm,
I have managed and sustained my creative life because of the fight of my peers, and for me, the way they show up for my art and believe in me, I think just it keeps it alive.
mhm,
mhm. Yeah, community is definitely important, I think, in terms of survival. And I think that's why that quote stood out to me because even if we disagree, it's really about banding together. I think that's what the other side tends to do, like follows the company
mm,
line.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
Yeah, I would add to both of those comments. Might be kind of dorky to say, but for me, love is important.
Oh, really?
Knowing that I am loved for who I am,
mm,
Black, queer, writer, artist, so tall, left-handed, etc. For all the
mm,
ways that I'm different, I'm loved for those things, and therefore I can give love because I am loved. That's really, really important to me. It's stabilizing.
mhm,
Um, it both grounds me in my personal relationships and when I walk out the door of my house and go out into the world, which, as we all know, is becoming more and more precarious
mm,
in this particular moment of this particular regime and this particular mentality.
mm,
So the ways in which love also constitutes resistance is really important for me as well. And when I see myself in the eyes of other women, when other women look at me, when my spouse looks at me, when we're having a good time with each other, just that sense that there's a mirror. There's a mirror that I look at and also looks back at me. Those moments are deeply restorative, and they go a long ways towards what we constitute as resistance. You know, you were saying a little bit earlier, Briona, about you were speaking to Anita Cornwell in terms of the revolutionary nature of her work and the life she lived. And it's important to remember that revolutions don't only occur by uses of violence. They can and they do, and there are ways in which they should, but they don't only occur that way. They can occur because we have decided to have a different kind of life. And therefore, the life we situate and leave in the world, that is the revolution. And it may be why we are sorry about that. It may be why we are able now to deepen our thinking about Anita Cornwell, because we recognize not only her dangerous art, but the revolutionary practice of writing that she engaged in.
No, I think that's really significant. Especially, we talk about love a lot. I don't really know much about Anita's romantic life. I think that we see her love manifest on page, and really, I think is connected to the way that she kind of entered into these rooms, whether it was the Negro Digest or even the latter, really wanting, especially with the Negro Digest. I want to thank Sharon, who we'll hear from before the event ends, who was a close friend of Anita's, but I got to read some of Anita's early writings from the Negro Digest, and I thought, like, as a person who is in such a precarious financial position, she is still broaching conversations about gender at a time when it really was not fashionable, and I could only think that love was the reason. And that's why I understand that her work is coming out of a particular moment, but I think that it's important for it to be republished and to remain, I would say, out in the world, because like, what an act of love to be the first person to do something without the community that you need to anchor you while doing it. And then also, like, you know, what a radical act to do it and to broach certain conversations intracommunally, right? And I think that she is as sort of critical of our people as she is those who might, you know, be considered on the outside or the more oppressive structure. On page 18, she wrote about how difficult it is for Black women to love each other. And I think about that often because one of the things that's not really a secret in our community is that Black women as lovers are typically people's last choice, especially in the realm of visual art and literary studies. But Anita wrote on 18 that in retrospect, I believe that's why so many Black lesbians feel so guilty about being gay. I now think that factor was the most significant in making some of my lesbian relationships with Black women such a harrowing experience. And probably the reason it did not occur to me at the time of the turmoil is that I was simply unaware of the terrible hold that religious beliefs often have on many people. And so this is sort of one moment in the beginning where she's really speaking about all of the facets of our lives that make coming together almost impossible. But I think it's a brave thing and it's a loving thing to put it on page so that we can confront it and essentially, hopefully, surmount it. Unfortunately, we're not there yet, but I think we're on our way.
It makes me think about the price of her ticket. Like, what she paid to be able to take the kind of stands that she took at the time that she, articulated these positions around patriarchy, racism, homophobia, sexism, etc. And to do so not from a very cushy place in society, but from a very precarious state in life that is really having to struggle around financial resources, often being a lone voice in terms of raising certain kinds of questions, racism in the white women's movement, sexism in the Black community, patriarchy across communities, etc. We cannot know, we know, but we cannot know the measure that what you call these impossible odds take from us. How many breaths it takes, these things take from our lives. We know and we cannot know.
I appreciate that she ends the book. One of the last words she writes is revolution. And that's why I wanted to hopefully end with asking everyone, what is your vision of freedom? I think Lena read the passage where, Anita is essentially wanting us to galvanize around the common enemy, and really surmount all oppressive forces. But I guess in a real way, how can we ground her words and consider what our own vision of freedom might be?
I think it's maybe applying what the hope is, which is not easy, but it's a lot of keeping conflict internal, not for the sake of being ashamed or embarrassed by it, but to not allow people outside of the community necessarily see the cracks, because I think that leaves space for people to make another group crumble. I think the mission is to always find a resolution and a way to move forward within whatever community one is a part of. And it's just really conflict resolution and figuring out what everybody needs, what everybody's looking for, and working toward that and finding ways to work toward that. And I think it has to do with a lot of removing ego in order to move forward. We all have it. It's necessary to live, but when we're led by it, we can be destroyed by it. And so I think the way to come together is to put that to the side and just figure out what's best for the greater group and the greater good.
I think I have multiple visions of freedom, like just list. For example, I think my vision of freedom is for everyone to have an opportunity to feel and to be restored. Another vision is also just knowing that I accept other people's freedoms, that my idea or vision of freedom doesn't mean that it's the right way to be free. It's just my way. And And if my way is choosing to remove myself from bondage, however that looks, I have that right. And everyone around me does as well. So there's a lot more. I said there was a list, but I'll leave with that there's this vision of freedom where I just, however I want to be free, I would love for it to be accepted. And however you want to be free, I accept that. And as long as I'm, not saying this is my way, follow my way of freedom, because it may not work for you.
Mm.
So I guess acceptance, restoring.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's for me, a very complicated question. It's more nuanced than not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like to think that when I am writing, when I'm at my table writing, that I am exercising the deepest notions of freedom in the context of something that I heard Toni Morrison say once. She said, someone was asking her about her writing, and she said, I write to make the white gaze irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the way I try to write. When I'm writing, I'm not writing for a white audience, and I'm very aware of that, and I'm very intentional. And those are the places that I feel like I exercise my freedom the most. Socially and politically, though, in the world, I think we're not there yet, so it's hard for me to consider freedom. I don't know that I will see this thing we call freedom in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really not sure about that. I think that we and particularly people who identify as queer are making the greatest steps towards freedom, because we are creating and presenting narratives that defy expectations and defy notions of normativity. I want freedom to be expressed in the greater world, but I am not sure what that's going to look like. I'm not sure how it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
My work is to help make that possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I'm most free, is when I'm working to help make that possible with my pen and my ink and my
Mm-hmm.
paper.
Mm-hmm. 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 Thank you.
Thank you.
I know that we're getting close to time. Is there a Q&A segment?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
A great question in the chat.
And after Q&A, can we bring Sharon into the highlight or spotlight her?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. What's the question? Sorry.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
not.
Gabriel asks, what is the role of Black lesbian writing in shaping what a free world can look like?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's at the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
It's at the forefront. When you look at Anita Cornwell and going forward, and also going back, when you look at what those of us who have identified as Black lesbian and or Black queer, the kinds of questions we are raising in our work are at the forefront of questions around humanity, of questions around desire, of questions around the body, of questions around freedom and politics. And we have, because we basically have had nothing to lose and also everything to lose,
Mm-hmm.
we have been at the forefront of pushing these questions and pushing these ideas and pushing other artistic practices to engage with our works as well. So in large measure, I think what Black lesbian writing, what Black queer feminist writing has done has been to push at binaries, all the notions of the binary, and to move us to think about not only, two genders, but several genders, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That's a theme that you see coming out of a lot of Black queer work and has been for quite some time.
Mm-hmm. 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 You said it.
Do other members of the panel um, feel similarly or differently around what we're getting out of the works of Black queer? I'm going to say queer because I identify with that word the most.
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing that those of us who identify as lesbian or gay and or bisexual and or trans and or as it has been stated earlier by Lena, we all live under the same umbrella. But I'm curious as to what the other panelists think about this question.
I think it depends on how a person identifies themselves, because a person, could be writing something and they could be in a heterosexual relationship, and then 5 years later could be in a queer relationship and be writing something else. So I think sometimes, for me, I think it's, yes, I think I related and I was really appreciative of this book for some specificity. But ultimately, I think the writer, whoever it is, there's just a humanity in it. Like there's no queerness in Raisin in the Sun, but I can seek it. I feel it a little bit, if that makes sense. Because Lorraine Hansberry wasn't identifying as a lesbian at the time of that writing, but you can feel rebellious energy, and somebody could argue it's a queer energy, but it's all to be argued. Because I think there's some TV writers who are queer but don't identify as such or don't know that they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a person could also not be clear about who they are, but be still in conversation with themselves. So just interesting. I just want artists to be in conversations with their own humanity. And I think that's something I think I'm sort of seeking as well.
For me, I love what Lena was saying, and I agree. I've been I was in the closet the majority of my life. I grew up in a very religious home, and I always found myself writing things that were not queer centered at all. But if I look back and I still have those journals of being a teenager, um, they felt very free.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like an escape. Um, in some world that I knew that I could exist in. And in me looking back at it, it seems very queer, although the characters were not. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I'm just, to carry what Lena was saying, I think to translate that into my actual life and seeing how my world can pretty much be whatever I want it to be, it feels like the writing and the work of reading of whatever it is takes me to have my own personal free world, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in terms of us as a society and how that looks or how we can be free and how Black lesbian writing in general can lead us somewhere. Um, I think just being on this panel alone is creating that freedom and I think it's important for that to continue.
Mhm.
Yeah, Alexis, well, I think the question was from one of my students, but one of the things that to me is really unique about Black lesbian writing is the emphasis on who might be left out of a conversation. There's always a fixation on who might be at the bottom. And I find that the thinking about the most marginalized community and building a very sort of capacious perspective about what oppressions might need to be surmounted. I find that analysis to be really useful. And I think even Anita, she speaks about, religious tyranny. She speaks about patriarchy, but also the investment in the nuclear family. There's really not a ground of oppression that she does not traverse. And I think that to me is what makes Black lesbian writing unique. And I also think another sort of key facet of our writing or Black queer writing is our emphasis or investment in pleasure or marking the contours of pleasure or thinking about sex and revolution. I know that even now, Black women have not had our sexual revolution as of yet, but I find that Black lesbians have the longest and sustained engagement about racialized sexualities. And I think that to me is another thing that makes the work really unique still, which is why I'm really happy about the republication.
And congrats on that too, Briona. It's a huge win, I think, for society as a whole.
Thank you. Before we go, and I know that we're at the time, Sharon, are you available to come on?
I pinned Sharon on the screen.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Where's Sharon?
Sharon Hurley is the person who we owe deepest. I don't see Sharon. Am I tripping?
Oh, I see Sharon now.
You do?
Mhm. This is
Down at the
this is
bottom.
this is my wife Anita too.
Oh,
I mean, my wife Tanya. Sorry.
yes,
Hi.
yes.
Talk.
Sharon is responsible for keeping Anita's estate safe. I'm so thankful that we met and that you generously donated Anita's work to the William Way Center in Philadelphia. I also want to note that Sharon has created a small scholarship that we'll be giving to a Black lesbian writer. So please email Sinister Wisdom if you would like to nominate a Black lesbian writer who you know who could use funds to advance their work. We'll announce the winner at the book or celebration of Doris Davenport's life. I think it's in January or February. But I just want to thank you, Sharon, for your generosity. And if you could just share anything that you might want to share with the group, that
No,
would.
thank you, Brionna. I appreciate everything you've done, and it's just in memory of my sweetie.
So yeah, I think you how long did you know Anita? I think you
Since '88, I guess.
Since
I'm an old person, but
Yeah.
yeah, she was older than me. But anyway, thank you very much, though.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. And thank you for being Anita's caregiver until she passed away. I think that yeah, work of a caregiver and even a friend is not easy work. And I'm just really, really thankful that because of you, we have access to her invaluable oeuvre. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brianna, for moderating tonight's event. Thank you, Lena, Alexis, Christy. Would anybody else have any closing words they would like to say? Yeah.
No, I'm appreciative. I'm thankful we'll continue to publish or republish works by Black lesbian writers that are out of print. That is the work. and I'm thankful to be doing it with Sinister Wisdom.
Thank you, Briona.
Yeah, and thank you to my panelists. Thank you, Alexis and Christy and Lena, for showing up. Really appreciate it. And thank you to the community of folks who spent an hour with us on their Wednesday evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Briona. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you. It's an
Appreciate
honor to be here. I feel so inspired. So thank you so much.
Mhm.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you. And yeah, it was such a lovely conversation, very stimulating discourse on Black feminist praxis. And I'm just honored to be able to like think with you guys. And thank you to everyone else who has joined us for this evening's event. And if you do not already have a copy of the Black Lesbians, White America, and other writings, you can order it online when Sinister Wisdom's website is back up and through Charis Books and More. It should be linked into the chat. The video from this evening's event will be available at Sinister Wisdom's website tomorrow and on Sinister Wisdom's YouTube channel, which will also be linked. And we have so much fall Zoom goodness happening. We have Sinister Wisdom's book club, Palace of Eros by Caro de Robertes, convened by Yeva Johnson on September 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We also have a celebration of Melting in Your Mouth, early poems with Chocolate Waters and Shanta Smith Cruz on September 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and celebrating the poetic vision of Pat Parker on October 14th. So you can keep up with us at sinisterwisdom.org/events. As I noted before, this season we are going to have a different dance song for every single event. So yes, that is correct. There's going to be a new song for each event. We know that this will keep you on your toes. So tonight we will dance to Ladies First by Queen Latifah. Max, you can cue the music. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.